Okay, good morning. I'll officially call to order the regular meeting of Coachella Valley Water District Board of Directors, March 12th, 2024, here in Palm Desert. And would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The words are there just in case you don't remember them. Roll call, please.
Good morning, President Powell.
Here.
Vice President Estrada will be arriving in a few minutes, and we'll notate that time for the record. Director Bianco.
Here.
Director Aguilar.
Here.
And Director Nelson.
Here.
Thank you.
Nice to see everybody. Do we have any additions, deletions, or adjustments to today's agenda?
No, sir, we do not.
I don't think so. Is there anybody from the public wishing to comment at this time? There's a raucous crowd out there. Seeing none, we'll move on. We do have an anniversary that we're celebrating. 20 years here. For Christopher Thomas. Chris Thomas is a graduate of Indio High School who began at CVWD in the Zanjero department. He advanced from trainee to Zanjero 2, then crop reporter service department A before moving to water management in 2015. He's always liked the variety of his work at CVWD and really enjoys helping our customers save water. Chris has always been dedicated to providing excellent customer service and going beyond, as demonstrated by his receipt of the Good Samaritan Award in 2007. Out of the office, Chris is happily married to his wife of more than 20 years, Cindy, with whom they share 5 children and 2 grandchildren. Wow. They look forward to traveling to visit all the kids and grandkids when they both retire. Which is not now because this is just an anniversary. So congratulations, coming up, and we have a thing for you.
In the middle.
In the middle.
You're the
Between us.
center of
You're
attention.
between us.
Thank you.
You're the star.
Thank you.
That's Jesse. Cindy's trying to. Oh, Cindy, you can come forward.
I smile real quick. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
All right, this is your time. What do you got to say?
Oh, no, it's just been a great pleasure to work here. No. Thank you. Yeah, no, there's some tough times there, but we're here. Glad to be here. I really enjoy my job as far as like I said, saving water. I tell people I make a decent wage, but the important thing to bring in less revenue. But
That's important, yeah.
But you know what? It's about saving water, and we're here to keep water for our grandchildren and beyond. So it's a great honor to do that. I enjoy it thoroughly. I love showing people new ways to save water. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you, Chris.
Got me for a few more years, probably.
Stay healthy, will ya?
Nice.
Well,
Yes, I
Careful
will.
out there on the road.
Oh, I am. Believe you me. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing it with us, Cindy.
okay, so the consent calendar, item 6A through C.
Mr. President, I just would like to make a correction to the item 6A for the approval of the minutes, the special meeting date of 2/20 and the 2/27/24, not 27, regular meeting minutes as well. So
You sure?
just correct that typo.
Yes, appreciate that correction. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed 4-0 with 1 absent. And on to the action calendar, 8A. This is the Emerald Desert non-potable water on-site project. Armando.
Good morning, President Powell, members of the board, fellow staff. Again, my name for the record is Armando Rodriguez with the engineering department. And the purpose of this request to seek authorization to go out to bids for the construction of the on-site portions of the Emerald Desert and the FY 2021 non-potable water on-site pipeline project specification 2024-03. And what do we have before you? Well, we have a great opportunity here to continue our work that we've been doing with non-potable water expansion. As you probably have driven the roads here lately, we've been going up and down Warner Trail, we've been going up Warner Road, and now we're commencing on Frank Sinatra. And so what the purpose of those improvements is to connect these customers you see in the map. That is Emerald Desert RV Resort, Annenberg Golf Club Connection, Jack Ivy, Suncrest, Tamarisk, Tri Palms, Southwest Community Church, and Gerald Ford Elementary. We have done a lot of great work in regards to the off-site. Now it's time for the on-site. And so that's the purpose of this this request to seek authorization to solicit bids. We anticipate that the off-site will be done here in the fall of 2024. And so we would like to continue now with the on-site, and hopefully the project will be complete and ready for service and deliver non-potable water here in the fall of 25. So with that, I'll stop my presentation and seek if there's any questions associated with this request.
I had some questions about it. Glad I didn't miss it. But I noticed on the staff report there was a breakdown of all the actions that have taken place kind of related to, and I couldn't understand if it was related to like the totality of this whole project, which I imagine is a big project. I think I saw a number there around $11 million, and then was it $11 million? And then there was a component that was like 300,000. And so I was just trying to have a sense of, and I know that you mentioned this is a ongoing project, and you have so much of it budgeted for this year. And I'm just trying to get a sense of how the totality of this project kind of measures up against the fund and the kind of the health of the fund. Is the fund pretty healthy? Is it in a place where it's gonna continue to absorb all of these projects? And I know that I think I recall even seeing some action taken as back as 2015. I think I already said in 2015 we did this, and then in 2020 we did this other thing, and so what does it all mean?
Okay. So in regards to the bigger picture, what does it all mean? We're really trying to achieve 100% recycled water within Ward 10. There's a lot of regulatory pressure here in regards to do different steps or a different view or a different program, which is very, very expensive. With regards to the totality, in regards to financial terms, for this is, yes, we're on to different phases of improvements. This is being one of them. If I have to look at, it's about a $47 million program that we have done to expand non-potable water through this reach. 21 of that million we have already awarded, and we're on construction now with the WECA. And so this 11 million that we have before you is for the on-site to connect these customers. And the 330,000 is the amount that we think we're going to expend this fiscal year, so that the remainder will be budgeted next fiscal. in regards to the health of the fund, I'm sure we're going to cover that within the CIP study session. And it is it is a item of concern just because there's a lot of big projects facing sanitation. One of them is the headworks, which we greatly need. Another one is the lift station, Cook Street, which is already past its age. And when we were developing the CIP project, I was perplexed because the dollar figures were really high. And so when we anticipated those budgets, we did see that there's about 8.5% rate increase if we go with what we have. But I'm sure we're going to be discussing that more in detail in the CIP study session.
Yeah, thank you for that. And so this is being funded from this, even this, all this program, the 11 million that we now have to do for on-site work. That's all projected to come out of sanitation, or is there did we and I guess this is a question for the board because I don't remember. Did we do away with the non-portable rate structure?
Yeah, all this is being funded through the sanitation fund because it is on-site work. We're not eligible to receive WIN funding like we did for the on-site or get a grant from SRF like we did for the off-site. And so this is all coming from the sanitation fund because it's all on-site work. And that's one of the reasons why we separated the off-site with the on-site.
And this is just for the 300,000. That's
all
action.
sanitation fund.
This action is only for the 300,000.
This action is for to seek us authority so we can go for the full amount, 300,000 now, and if we go out to bids, then there will be a later board action item in regards to the commitment of the full contract.
So this is really just to solicit bids, and the board may recall that when Steve Bigley was here, and as Armando has said, there is some increasing regulatory pressure with concerns about salt and nutrients, nitrogen specifically within the wastewater flows. But as far as the recycled water program goes, I don't believe there are any other large components to this. We recently did an analysis of whether or not we would proceed with phase 3, which essentially takes the line up Bob Hope. And we found during that analysis that we really didn't have enough recycled water to provide, at least at this point, to additional customers. So if I recall correctly, this is kind of the extent of the program that we'll be undertaking for now. Population growth being what it is, water use being what it is, the state is continuing to drive down the gallons per capita per day. So there's also that tension within the system, but making sure we get as close as we can to 100% recyclable is the goal, just so we can avoid having to make capital improvements to the plant because of regulatory pressure. And this is just solicitation of bids. The projects will come back once we get a sense of what the total cost is.
Right. Is the anticipation to get to do these as an aggregated bid in that they would be bidding on the 9 or so different projects as a package, and would they be implemented one by one over a number of years? How does that work, Armando?
Thank you, Director Nelson. Good question. Yes, we would like to go out to bid as a whole. I think there's good economy of scales in regards to doing the same thing. The only thing the difference between these customers is just the length of pipe, but the infrastructure with the vault, metering, and telemetry, they're one and the same. And so we can get good, not only good productivity, but efficiency in regards to executing one, then the next, and then the construction arm and the forces, they do a good job. Once you repeat once, let's do it 9, 10 more times.
And we're pretty sure we'll have enough water to, at least to serve these.
Yes,
I should say recycled water. Yeah,
correct.
Okay. Okay.
Not
If
having
there's-
enough recycled water is a good. It's good. That means we're 100%.
No, I know. Well, I mean, yeah. So we're gonna. Our
Yes,
goal is to use
absolutely.
100%. So there might be times when we don't have enough, where we supplement it with
Correct.
Colorado River water. But you're trying to match that, so you do use all of it. Yeah. Since demand changes.
So to Director Nelson's question, you're saying that we wouldn't have any issues doing some of these construction projects if we decided 3 years from now that we didn't need to do the whatever remaining were at that point. We wouldn't get into issues with the contractor. Because they're bidding, you're saying this is a bid for all projects, right?
This is a bit so that we can connect all these 9
With the
customers with one contract. And so it'd be best for us to go out and connect
Okay.
these. So, because
So it is one project then. So
It
it's
is one
not-
project.
It's not several projects. It's one project. When we award it, it'd be to do the total scope of work.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, the idea is that we don't want to go out to bid unless we're pretty sure we're going to want to do this, right? I mean, that was the step we added a couple of years ago. Okay.
Yeah, and for me, the only thing I'm trying to get a sense of understanding that point is that there is nothing that this is taken away from if we have like higher priority in some other projects also in the sanitation fund. And I think you mentioned something about you doing a calculation that requires a 8% increase. So I'm wondering if this is an issue or
It is. I was just talking with Victoria earlier this morning, and she suggested that Zoe might have better information regarding some regulatory proposals that are going to potentially make discharging this wastewater very, very costly for us. So these projects are designed to prevent us from having to do that, right? I mean,
Correct. Absolutely.
and I suggested that maybe that I don't have enough information on this, and that maybe the whole board would like more information on it, as far as what these regulatory proposals are that are sort of driving these decisions. I don't know much about it. It came up at the DVBA meeting yesterday, and I felt that I maybe needed to learn more about what those regulatory threats are, if that's a good word.
Challenges.
Yeah,
Challenges,
we'll
yeah.
have more information on that. But right now, I just wanted to make the point that this project is the continuation of the current offsite project. So all the pipelines we're installing right now would be a stranded asset if we didn't do this project.
Right.
So they kind of go hand in hand as a package. It's just we chose to bid them out in 2 separate packages to keep it straight in terms of the funding source. So this has been
Right.
part of the
That makes
program
sense.
since we started talking about the non-potable water program and implementing it. So this is a very critical piece, and I would say it is one of our higher priority projects. And we aren't not doing something in order to do this. We need to do this and finish it. Otherwise, that 21 million or more is just going to sit there and it's not going to be delivered. We need this
Right.
project to actually make it work.
Right.
good point.
Yeah, in some of that funding that we attained in for the distribution system, is that, was that like grants? Or was that money that we will have to pay back and this project will fund some of the repayment of that?
We received both. We received a loan, an SRF loan, and then we also received a grant from the USBR through the WIN program. So we've got an $8.4 million grant pending approval, and the loan is $12.7 million.
And the 12.7 million, I would imagine is, will have a funding mechanism for repayment of the water sales through this system.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then we're also using our supplemental water supply charge funds that we had collected over the years. And then, you know, when we redid our developer fee studies, we created the nexus to be able to use those funds for inland recharge. So we're using 12 million of that, of those funds
Okay.
for this project too. And those don't have a rate impact, and, you know, those have
Right. Those were
collected.
those were funds collected to supply additional water
Water
supply, and this is what this project would satisfy that
Right.
goal and objective by replacing groundwater production with reclaimed water
Right.
supply.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
You know, just out of curiosity, since we're talking sort of big picture here, when you see Tamarisk and Annenberg, you have 4 or 5 golf courses directly south of those, across the street, right? I know I've brought this up. It's just been such a long time we've been doing these things. Are those sort of in the queue for future connection?
Yeah, they're definitely in the queue. But as you know, that when we knock on these doors, you know, there's a lot of folks that are very receptive, kind of like Annenberg. They definitely want the non-potable water, and they kind of wanted it a couple years ago. But others see a golf course, but then the ownerships, you know, doesn't want to be tied to recycled water because they might see a different use of the golf course, and so there's a reluctance there associated with. But we are targeting those customers when they're ready to connect, and the infrastructure has been sized accordingly.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. I mean, there's quite a bit there.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, well, I definitely see this as a step, you know, of the grander project, and you know, it's good to have separated out the transmission, which qualified for WIN-ACT loan and SRF loan, and I would move approval to go out to bid for these projects that continue to supply additional water supplies to the valley.
Agree, I'll second.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it did. I mean, the first approval was 2015, right? You saw that. I saw that too. I'm like, what?
It's been a
We've
while.
doing
Huh?
this a long time. Good.
These projects are expensive.
Yeah, they
It's
are
a long time to
expensive.
do them, and so we have to spread them out.
Yeah.
Oh, it does. Yeah, I agree. So, all right, there's a motion and a second. I think we're ready to take action. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passed 5-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Armando and Carrie.
Armando.
Yeah. It's a big one. Yeah, light agenda today. So next we had the communications log, which were 2 items that were resolved. Reports to be filed. I don't have anything for that right now.
Sometimes it's the financials.
Yeah, and then we have an information presentation, which is Geotab, Stuart
Morning,
Taylor, and I looked at it. It might look good, but there wasn't a lot of value judgments placed on the presentation, so I'm curious to hear how you feel about it.
Good morning, it's President Powell.
And will we get our insurance back?
That's maybe a closing comment. Good morning, President Powell, Vice President Strada, and distinguished members of the board. We thought this would be a good opportunity, since we've had Geotab currently in use for the past 2 years, that we could provide some information relating to where we started, where we are currently, and what we anticipate as we move forward. Thank you. So, basically what we want to show with this slide is that currently we finished the calendar year with a 99.7% fleet safety score, which is really outstanding. And of all the 1,665 fleet occurrences, or what we generally refer to as exceptions, none of those, 0 of them, were in the high risk category, which is outstanding for the number of vehicles we have on the road, the number of miles that we travel in a year.
Stuart, can you talk about the how you rate low risk, high risk? What goes into those factors, and maybe some examples of in each area?
Yeah, can I touch on that at the very end?
Sure. Yeah.
We do have a kind of a follow-up slide at the very end, just in case that came up.
Okay.
What we wanted to show is when we started the Geotab system, we implemented it March 18th of 2022. And for the first calendar year, we traveled just over 2 million miles. And you'll see that the chart to the right simply shows the month-by-month progress of that scoring matrix, and that had a very positive upward trend. And as we learned to interpret the data, communicate with the employees, share that information and feedback, it really did have a positive result in how the employees operated the vehicles, and they were more aware of their surroundings and so forth. So we traveled just over 2 million miles, and we had 3,335 occurrences, or exceptions that we call them. And those are based on that bottom line of information. You'll see the total occurrences, and then each of the 5 safety categories that we monitor, which are the hard acceleration, harsh braking, harsh cornering, seatbelt utilization, and then speeding. So we had 1,400 speeding exceptions, 1,214 seatbelt exceptions, and so forth. And so that was the first 9.5 months that we had the system active. So the contrast, which I think is a great story, right, in the most recent calendar year that we just finished, we had a full 12 months of information. We traveled just shy of 2,700,000 miles, and the exceptions came out at 1,675 for the complete year. The speeding exceptions, you'll note, went from 1,400 down to 300. We'll make a comment on that as well, that of the 300 speeding exceptions, we could probably count on one hand the number that were actually what we consider higher speed, right? Freeway speed, they were 70 plus miles an hour. A vast majority of these are lower speed, right? They're a transition from a posted speed of, say, 65 down to 55, or from a 45 to a 35. So they're around town, they're lower speed. So they're not ones that you look at and you say, oh, this gives me a giant step back and gives me pause to what's going on out there. It's simply some, again, awareness of the situation of posted speeds, and the drivers are obviously responding quite positively to that, to reduce it in such a significant fashion.
Are they speeding if they're 1 mile over?
No, so the rules are based on, to give some latitude, so they would have to go a certain distance, 6 miles an hour over, for 1 minute or more for it to trigger an exception. So it gives them some opportunity to say, oh, I'm going a little bit too quick, and to slow back down, or to get around somebody that's going slower than them, that they need to move around, that type of thing.
So in that example, Stuart, would that be like on the freeway, but in city driving, it might be 6 mile an hour for 500 feet or something like that? Are there different criteria for different speeds?
No, it's all the same rule criteria for time and distance and speed over the posted, but it's simply based on the posted speed that's in the system. Okay. So then the seat belts, obviously those went from 1,200 down to 800. We did find that there is some information that doesn't translate well in the system that we've been able to identify and reduce some of those false alerts that we'll call them. Drivers aren't driving around an entire day without a seatbelt on. They might come into a facility, have to get out and open a gate, and then as they traverse through, they maybe just forget to snap their seatbelt back on. But again, they're going at a low speed. They're going down a canal road. They're within a facility or something like that. And so again, it's just situational awareness and telling them, look, snap your seatbelt back on if you take it off to go through a gate. So again, this trend will continue to go down. We've also been able through Geotab to have the ability to go in, and as we review these exceptions, if they're not what we consider a legitimate thing, we can now dismiss it and take it off of our safety score. So it provides a more positive trend in that way. Just want to make two comments on the harsh braking and harsh acceleration. While we have those that will negatively impact our daily driving score, there are many occasions where when we review the video, so each exception will attach a short 10-second video that associates with whatever that exception was. And we'll have instances where there's a harsh braking or a harsh cornering where a driver is actually driving defensively. They're taking evasive action to avoid somebody who ran through a stop sign or a stoplight or is pulling out from a side road. In fact, we just had one this morning where the driver had a harsh braking yesterday and the driver pulled straight out in front of him, and he, because he was aware of his surroundings and paying attention, stopped just in time for that car to finish pulling clear out in front of him. So it's sometimes a negative score, but a positive result where the drivers are really paying attention to what's going on. So maybe to conclude this, Geotab is a very sophisticated system. We're able to glean a tremendous amount of information. We use that to coach and mentor our employees to safer driving habits. We look at it every single day and continue to look for opportunities to make things safer. As an example, we'll oftentimes have 260 or more vehicles on a road in a single day. They'll travel 10, 11, we've had as high as 12,000 miles in a single day, and we've come back with 0 exceptions. So it's having the right effect on how we are performing out in the field and, operating our vehicles in a safe fashion. That benefits the district as well as the general public. And we believe that as we move into the future, that this information will help us, as you point out, get back to where we have our liability insurance. And I believe this data is critical to that endeavor to get that insurance back. So finally, Director Nelson, I'll address the topic that you asked about. My final slide wasn't on there, but I think I thought on the presentation we had something that demonstrated how the rules are categorized. So and this slide will work, I can kind of make the connection from there. So you'll see that there's low risk, mild risk, medium risk, and high risk. And so what the system does is based on whatever rule it is, whether it's speeding, whether you have your seatbelt on, whether it's a harsh cornering or harsh braking, it takes the totality of that trip for the day. So if the vehicle only drove 15 miles for the entire day, it's going to weight that score based on those number of miles and then whatever the rule was. So we've weighted speeding as the highest impact on the score. So it'll have a 35% value as opposed to a harsh acceleration, which maybe is a 10%. So it takes all that cumulative data, and then if you have one exception or two exceptions or three or more, then it will start accumulating those scores down and put it into the low, mild, medium, and high risk categories. So we just don't have significant events of multiple exceptions in a day for a single driver. So that's why our scores have stayed fairly elevated into that green zone of low risk, because we just don't have people who are ignoring the rules and speeding or not using their seat belts or basically driving in an unsafe fashion. They're really paying attention and being aware of their surroundings. So I don't know if that helps clear it up. So if they didn't use their seatbelt for the entire day, then it's going to calculate the number of miles they drove and weight it based on that particular rule's value and then give it a final score. So 100% is 0 exceptions, no problem, and it might bring it down to 85 or 90%. if it was just a seatbelt. If it was a speeding in a seatbelt, then it might bring it down to 85% or something like that. But it's kind of a sliding scale, if I can put it that way, because it bases it on the rules and the values and the number of miles and all the activity of that vehicle for the day.
So in those examples, you might say, what would a good description of a seatbelt off while you drive through the gate would fall under a low risk category?
Right, and that's why I mentioned if it was for the entire trip, for the entire day, and the vehicle hit, freeway speed 70 miles an hour and then got off the freeway, it takes all those data points into account when it finally tabulates a score at the end of a day.
I would imagine that area of statistics would be important as we get back into the insurance market, how they might want to, look at those issues. And how
Yeah, and we have provided information over to Blanca and Brianne, who are in the process of going through that again to put it out to try to get the insurance. We've provided some of this data to them, which I think is.
I wonder do you know if there's insurance standards for those criteria?
Well, so Geotab uses an industry standard. All the rules are based on that, kind of what fleets, not only government fleets, but private fleets, they use an industry standard. So I think that would translate over to companies who would be looking to provide us insurance again. So I think it's going to be critically important for us to communicate this information to them.
Are these standard reports, or are these that you presented? They're great reports, by the way. Are these standard and you just put your name on it from Geotab, or is there a lot of data massaging that you have to do to come up with these?
No, so a lot of these are standardized reports but they're specifically to CVWD, and then we can also do some ad hoc reporting and go to a deeper dive or hone in on a specific type of behavior that we think we need to address. So there are some boilerplate reports, and then there's some very specific stuff that we can ask them to help us come up with some specific data that may be of concern or that would benefit us as we investigate some sort of.
So I wouldn't expect you to know the number right off the top of your head, but how much we spend on these, and if it's dependent on the number of vehicles or geotabs you have out in the field.
Right. So the cost of the Geotab system is per vehicle. So the Go device is the GPS device. We pay for the Surfsight camera. We spend about $15,000 a month currently with all the licenses that we have for the cameras and the Go devices for the GPS system, and it's very accurate, right? It's a one second ping, so we can really identify where our vehicles are with great accuracy. The data that we're receiving back is very accurate. The stuff that isn't accurate, we can edit and provide feedback to Geotab. So they've been very responsive to some of our feedback too, and putting things in place that ensure that continues to get more accurate as we move forward.
All inclusive, how many different data points do you have out in the field on vehicles? 5,000
data points?
Yeah, well, in terms of
2.7 million
devices out in the field, like a Geotab on Jim's, it's his car now. So a Geotab on Luis's car and a camera on your car, so we can figure out what you're doing.
So there's 439 devices in the system
very
in total. Yeah, but the data points are hundreds of million. It's remarkable the amount of data. Yeah.
Stuart, I know you've also implemented an accident review committee panel every time there's an accident. I don't mean to catch you off here, but great information. Do we know whether the number of accidents has actually decreased?
So I don't know that I have the number of accidents that happen. I'm not always in that loop, but we do provide information from Geotab to the committee where they can review that information and show. I'm pretty convinced that it has made a difference, but I don't have the facts to back that up.
Yeah, so I see all the incident reports that come in, and it certainly has sensitized the staff to making sure that they do a pre-inspection of the vehicle. And then if there's a ding in the paint, or somebody a chip in the windshield. They're at least now bringing that up, and whether or not that gets reviewed kind of depends on the contributing factors that may or may not have resulted in that. So again, there's probably a severity scale on accidents, despite the fact that everybody's now increasing the number of things they report, because they don't want somebody else to find that and then say, hey, you didn't report this, so it must have happened on your watch.
Yeah, and so I'll make a distinction on.
And now
whether-
there's little fobs now, so
Yes.
you know exactly
We
who's
know-
in every vehicle.
We know who's in the vehicle, who's driven it last, who drove it before then, so that's all historical data we can review. But the incident report is kind of a separate pathway of reporting something on a vehicle versus the daily inspection report. So that's, I think, also what you're referencing is there is a daily inspection report, and that if there's a deficiency in the vehicle, that's reported to the auto shop, and they will address that on an immediate basis if need be. Particularly, obviously, safety and reliability is the top priority, and then maybe if it's a scuff, we're not going to send it to the body shop, but at least we notate that that was already noted in a previous pre or post inspection.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, good.
Stuart, I have a question. Can you put the 23 chart back up here? So I was just curious about if you compare the July, the number is still really good. It's above 99%. But if you compare the July number in 23 to 22, there's a significant variable. Is that just a quirk, or what's happening there?
Yeah, so I don't know that I would call it significant. So July is 99.57 on that one and 99.3 on this one. So
Yeah, the visual is just dramatic,
Our scale
yeah.
is
Yeah.
pretty minute, I think, but it is. There are days and there are weeks and or months where we see a spike in activity. Sometimes it can be something like what we reference with seatbelt exceptions. Like we'll have something that glitches and it'll show 10 or 15 seatbelt exceptions in one day for a vehicle, and we take it in and review that vehicle with the computer scanner, and it'll show that it's got a defective latch or something, or the Go device is misinterpreting information, which we found, and we're having to replace some harnesses to correct that data. So that's some of what we had in the past where we would see these spikes of issues. We had posted speeds that were incorrect that we worked with Geotab to correct. Some of the data definitely came back and we weren't sure that it was 100%, so we worked to correct that information. And I think that's some of the variance you might see there, because you'll see that in 2023 that line's pretty linear compared to the previous year where we were showing the steady improvements, and now we've
Yeah, they just
kind of
jumped
hit
out.
this
Just kind of jumped out.
fine tuning. Yeah, it looks more significant than I think it actually is,
Okay.
just because it's all up in that 99th
Okay.
percentile. So
Maybe the person scrubbing the data was on vacation that month.
maybe.
Yeah, who knows? All right, thanks.
Yeah, that'd be my guess. Good. Well, seems like a worthy program.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. On to board member general comments, Director Nelson.
Yeah, so a couple comments. So this week, there was a mid-month contractors review on the state water project. So DWR does a monthly call and for contractors, and there was a mid-month. They implemented a mid-month call, and so it was distressing to hear that that under a proposed federal BIOPS that steelhead salmon would be receiving more water out of the system, and less water would be pumped to San Luis Reservoir. San Luis Reservoir right now is 97 or 8% full of federal water and about 45% full of state water because of certain circumstances over the year. But some of those have to do with the biological opinions that have been guiding what they call the OMR which is the old Middle River regulations. And so for the feds to implement this decision that has cause for even less pumping for the next few weeks is pretty distressing, Jim, in terms of, it's not even, wasn't even contemplated this year in the current BIOPS. And so my suggestion is that the district use all available resources and communication and collaboration with Matt or Kern to address these curtailments that aren't even in today's regulations. And so I've talked to Robert about it this morning. This mid meeting was this week, so it's pretty new. But if you all can put a full court press on that, I mean, right now we're at 15% allocation. I fully expected that we'd get up to 35% this month and maybe 50% because that 15% was not based on any of February and none of March, and we've had a fantastic February and a miracle March in the first couple weeks, and so snowpack levels are above 100% again. So it's very frustrating to see that these regulations are being implemented as a trial run for when they really might come, and it's the valley's water, and I mean it could be as much as 30,000 acre feet to Coachella, which is about what we're foregoing on the Colorado River. So these volumes are pretty significant. So my suggestion is that the staff really put that full court press on in what's happening in today's environment and go from there. Those are my comments.
Yeah, thank you. Dr.
John,
Aguilar.
I just had a request, if it's possible today. I could not make the conservation meeting yesterday. If we could have Robert give us a 2-minute summary of the results of the meeting at whatever point. I don't know. It's up to Jim, whether now or later.
It's all right, huh? Okay to do that? Yeah. Why don't we do that when we get to department reports, 12C? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Give him some time to put his thoughts.
Director Beyond. Yeah, I know.
Sorry, Robert.
He's already organized on this one, I guarantee it.
No comments.
Okay. Castelo.
Yeah, a few comments. I received an email from Marisela Cabral. She was our deputy clerk. Seems like she's moved on, and I just wanted to wish her success at her new employment. And I wanted to share that it was a pleasure for me to work with her over these years. So she was here the entire time I've been here, so gonna miss her. I also received a request to appear and testify at the oversight hearing of the Assembly Committee on Environmental Safety and Toxic Materials tomorrow morning in Sacramento. So I will be presenting in front of the committee tomorrow. Victoria is gonna go with me. I think we have several meetings that we've scheduled to kind of do the rounds after the hearing. I've been working with Carrie to put together a presentation that's gonna highlight our experience and what we've been doing here as it relates to the state's human right to water policy. The hearing is specifically on that. They are requesting the State Water Board to give a presentation on what they've been doing with the budget, if the program is working, if there's areas of concern, if the program should continue. I think it's part of the state's budget process, being that they want to cut off a lot of things. I think they want to get a report on how the program's doing, and if there's if it should be continued, if the budget is appropriate, or if it should get cut, or if it should be expanded. So that's the purpose of the hearing, and so the chair of the State Water Board will make comments, and they've called upon maybe 4 other speakers, and so I'll be there tomorrow representing the district. I hope to do well, and thank you for the help, staff. And
Costello, who's the chair of that oversight committee?
our assembly member Eduardo Garcia
Okay.
is the the chair, and so he's been moved around in the committees. But when we first started this effort back in, I don't know, 2016, 2017, when we were trying to create more funding as part of SAFER, he was also the chair at that time on water, parks, and wildlife.
Okay, yeah.
And so he's been following, kind of the transition of all this work, and so happy to be back and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, excellent. So not to interrupt you, but Jim or Victoria, could you send us, the board, the link to that oversight committee so we can watch Costello in action?
Perfect. Thank you. Send me some good vibes. And yeah, just wanted to just put it on the record that Brian had a lot of friends, and I was very sad to hear about his news and send my condolences. And he was a personal friend of mine, and I will miss him very, very much. And sending my condolences and my respect to his family. That's it for me.
Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna. Likewise, I've known Brian a long time. I'm trying to remember the first time I met him. I think it was when he was with Sonny Bono, and I was in Washington D.C. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember how many years ago that was. I did want to just mention, I heard that, and so I do send my condolences to Gina and the family. I can't imagine. But I heard that his services may be Tuesday the 19th. Don't know the
Yes.
time.
I think it's scheduled for Tuesday.
Do you know the time? I don't know that the time's been. Anyways, I know we have a study session on Tuesday the 19th in the morning. So it's CIP, right? I just think we should maybe make sure that we don't lose our board members to the service that day if there's a conflict. I don't know. I don't know the time.
I don't know the time, but I do know that it is Tuesday,
No, I'll be going to that.
and
Three of us will be going.
and I'll be going to that too.
So keep an eye on that. I don't know if they even know yet what time it is. I think it's at Sacred Heart, but maybe call Sacred Heart and find out.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Carrie. Anyways, that, yeah, that is, it is always a hard
We
part.
can pick a date and a time, but we can't always make the members.
Yeah. So I believe that's it for board general comments. Do we have any board requests for future agenda items? Hearing none. Very short list on the meeting reports. We had February 28th, Golf and Water Task Force. I was not there. Director Bianco, you're listed there.
I was not there either.
So that's easy. And then we had February 29th, Director Estrada at USC.
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting group of folks there. Very fancy place I never knew existed in downtown LA. And so we were there as part of this forum that was really made up of a bunch of attorneys. I think ours was unique, where none of us were attorneys. But it was all related. It was all about real estate and what the future of real estate looks like in California. And so there was, they wanted to know how the water reality in California would impact real estate and the ability for development, things like that. So we had Deputy Mayor of Infrastructure from the city of LA there. We had previous, I think, Assistant General Manager from Metropolitan Water District and myself, and we kind of talked about some of what we've been doing with Sigma, what it means, and kind of what those new laws have required for developers to do in order to move projects. And so that was ours, but I was able to attend some of the other ones. There was one that was very interesting, and it was about taxes and insurance, and they were going over a case study on what they called the mansion tax. which was very interesting. I had never heard of that. And I think it started in the city of Carson, and it was challenged, and the attorneys that were representing, I think, against the tax, they lost. And so as soon as they lost, a bunch of other cities in California started implementing the mansion tax, including like Beverly Hills, and I think it was a way to fund homelessness programs. And anyways, it was very interesting to hear that universe of.
It's called a mansion tax?
Well, that's they when they campaigned for it, they called it a mansion tax, and it was a tactic to get everybody to go, well, yeah, it's a mansion.
So it's
So-
yeah, I know.
Good, I don't have to worry about
The
that.
city of Los Angeles passed it,
Yeah.
and it's over a certain amount. So if your house sells for more than 10 million or something, I don't know the number. I think it's only when you have a transaction, and then I think they charge 5% surcharge.
Yeah, it's
On the
I think the
transaction.
cutoff is like 5 million.
Okay.
5
But
million.
yeah, but it's like this huge tax, and
It's really impacted the real estate market there.
yeah.
I'm sure because a lot of homes probably go for $4,999,000.
Yeah. Anyways, it was interesting to hear all about it. It was like a movie, but it was cool. I was able to talk with Heather Wales a little bit about some of our stuff, and so it was good to connect with her. And I really appreciated the opportunity. And the dean was there also, so
Dennis,
so Dean was there, and so it went well, and I was happy to be there.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing that. We March 11th, we had a joint meeting yesterday with IID, just talking about sort of compromise agreement related things. I was there, I believe, and Director Bianco was not present yesterday. And then also listed is the March 11th DBBA board meeting. I was there, talking about things, including our sanitation fees that might be going up if the regional board implements some more difficult regulatory stuff.
I have one more comment.
Go ahead.
I don't have a meeting, but it is a comment. I was asked to participate in the 4th district, but state of the 4th district. So I'll be on one of the segments. I think they have several segments, and I'll be in one of the segments, and that's scheduled for Monday. So I'll be there. If you guys go, you'll see me. Say hi.
Is it a video or is it live?
No, they want me to do live, so I think I'm gonna go up there and talk for about 5 minutes or so, and it'll be centered around some of what we're working in the Mecca area. I think they want to highlight some of their efforts on infrastructure in Mecca and that affordable housing that's slated there. So I was out there with them on Friday, and they did some drone flyovers, and I kind of told them to kind of fly over the IXDP plant and the lift station that they're putting in some of their ARPA money on, and kind of fly in the direction of where they have the Nuestro Orgullo project. And so, Carrie, I'm probably gonna continue to talk to you just about some of that stuff.
Wasn't it I think it was the city of Cathedral City, they did their state of the city, and they did all these videos of people, and they had to like sing and dance during their videos.
Yeah.
Was that?
Yeah, they
That
did.
actually was very good.
For each council person, yeah.
Everyone did some kind of a
Yeah,
presentation.
yeah.
Were you on there then?
It was a gas, yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think they should do that.
Yeah, no, I don't know that I want to
No,
dance.
maybe not.
Well, maybe you should do that for yours when we have it in,
Oh, yeah.
in December.
When we have the state of CBWD.
Makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Any other meetings we need to report on?
I think they wanted me to report on, and I thought I was here, and you reported on the meeting we had February 13th with IID at the library in Coachella. So it was just our first get together to talk about power in the region, talk about some of the lawsuits back and forth, and it was the first start, and I guess you guys had your follow-up meeting. I'm sorry I missed it.
Any others? Is there a motion to approve per diem for the meetings reported on?
So move.
I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pass 5-0. General manager report.
Yes, sir. In the interest of time, I know we're really busy this morning. I have the privilege of potentially being called for jury duty next week. So the fact that we're moving the study session may be a good thing for me if I get called, but that's one reason why I will not be able to attend the state of the county. But I will then reserve the rest of my time for Robert.
Okay, well, we have council report next.
Yes, just briefly wanted to mention AB 764, which went into effect the first of the year. This has to do with the rules that will apply when the redistricting takes place after the next census. As you may recall, there were different rules for special districts as opposed to cities, and now the special districts will be subject to the same rules as cities, which include some additional hearings, a workshop requirement, the setting up of a separate website, and it codifies some of the criteria that have been applied in the past to cities and special districts, but now it's part of the law. So nothing that needs to be done right away, but just to keep in mind that the redistricting rules that apply to cities and counties, which were more expansive, will now also apply to special districts. Will certainly help you through that process. That's all I have.
Thank you. We look forward to that. All right, we have a departmental report. Robert Chang on yesterday's workshop.
Yes, sir. And if there's a little bit of time, maybe I can address Director Nelson's question as well, just very briefly.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I'll address Director Aguilar's question first. Yesterday's grower workshop for the Ag Conservation Program, I thought it went well. It was pretty well attended. I'd say there's about 15 participants, live participants in the room. It was filled. And I think there was one who attended virtually. So I think some of the names I think the board might recognize. I think Albert Keck was there, and Mike Belk, and then I think Juan Delara. Those are certainly the faces I recognize, but there were a few that I'm not as familiar with. So I went through a brief presentation, which I think should be available on our website now. But if not, we can certainly I can send it to Sylvia, and she can pass it around to the rest of the board. It's a very brief presentation, really just kind of chronicling how we got here. So this program certainly isn't anything new. We talked about it. I think the first iteration of it was back in March or April of 2022. So it's almost been 2 full years. And under that construct is very different. We were kind of opening it up to any conservation efforts, including row crops. So as the current iteration that was adopted by the board, I think a few weeks ago at your last board meeting, really kind of limited the type of conservation that could be affected to permanent crops. And I think I had to explain that to the group on how we made that journey. And really, I think it's because of the funding source. I think Reclamation, in their desire to be standardized on templates, they're, I call rather inflexible. So it took about 14 months to get from the start of negotiations to the final piece, and that was even kind of conforming to sort of their rules and regs. So most of the comments that we received were, well, why we limited to permanent crops? So they thought it was a CVWD decision. I kind of explained to the group that when you're dealing with the federal government and you're trying to get money from them, you have to kind of comply by the rules. Then they asked some of the other questions they asked me. Well, is this kind of similar to what the other agreements that they have with like IID, for instance, are? And I said, I really don't have visibility to that because each, contract is pretty close hold. And even though I've asked, many times to get that the details. Still have not seen that yet.
Robert, has that contract hasn't been executed, right, for the 1B funds for IID? And
I'm not aware that they've made that it's been executed. Apparently, according to the feds, for the purposes of news release, I think it has, but I really don't know where it is. I certainly haven't seen it, and maybe at the CRB meeting, I'll ask Tina to see if we, what the status is.
Okay, thank you.
So, anyways, I think there was. I would say, the good news is that there's still a high level of interest from the community on this, but unfortunately, I think a lot of the interests are coming from like the row crop growers, and I think they kind of expressed their concern that under the current iteration, we may not be getting the volume of participation that we're seeking, and I said, yeah, I think we fully realize that this was really a program that's designed for the participants who are in the right space and right time to be making those decisions. So I said this may not be the last that we consider this. The application closes on April 30th, and if we really don't get a lot of participation and reclamations in the space where they really want to spend this money, then I said, well, maybe we have to come back and talk it over with our board and see if we can kind of modify or tweak the agreement. But we have to kind of allow this to go through this course first.
Robert, was there any ideas that the group brought up that sounded that we missed?
Thank you for the question, Director Bianco. But I don't think there was anything really new that we have not talked about, in these circles. I think, there was some desire of, they say, well, if we're just doing reductions, how come it has to be permanent fallowing? And I, kind of explain the fact that there's a lot of eyes on this program, and really the only way to fully administer this, without any, for lack of a better term, I'll call gaming, the system, is to actually have proof that you're fallowing. If you have agricultural efficiencies, it's, a little bit less to see, harder to see, because when you drive out of the field, they're still growing crops, unless, you pull their data, there's no obvious signs that they're contributing.
I know there are some growers who want to, say, for instance, dates want to try and go use half the water for the next 3 years. And I think that's what was brought up.
Yes, sir. I think that Mr. Keck actually, kind of brought up the fact, how come we have to go, as drastic of a measure. So I just said, yeah, I think we're going to collate, all the comments, from the meeting. And, if you're interested, we can certainly, give you a cleaned up version of that. But again, I don't think, anything that you haven't seen before. So my takeaway on the bright side is that there's still a lot of interest out there. I think the community wants to help. But under the current iteration, it may not produce the sort of results that reclamation or wants.
Right, understood. Thank you, Robert, for taking the lead on this. Appreciate it.
No, thank you. And if I could just have 1 minute to kind of talk about the steelhead issue that Director Nelson brought up. I'm not going to go into a lot of details for fear that I may be overstepping my my technical knowledge. So I did have a conversation with the general manager of State Water Contractors after Director Nelson talked to me, and this is definitely something that's very high on her radar. So, in fact, I think this afternoon she's calling for a meeting, Director Nelson, about 1:30 to 2 for State Water Contractors to talk this very issue. There is a time-sensitive element to this, as you pointed out correctly. So the species that we're talking about is steelhead, which is a federally protected species. And unless I got it completely wrong, it is protected by NMFS, which is the National Marine Fisheries Service. So the way that we got here is that the steelhead, this season has been wet, as you pointed out, and steelhead, the theory, the biological theory, is that steelhead uses the delta for migration path. So, when they are traversing through this area, pumps have to be turned off so that you avoid entrainment. There is a take limit, take being a fancy word for basically yeah,
Mortality.
exactly. And there's a limit to it. Yeah, I do. Probably user problem on my part, but the bottom line is we're approaching that take limit, and at that point, NIPS steps in, and they have the final say on what can be done. So I think in an effort for Department of Water Resources, who manages our contract, not just our contract, but for all the contractors, they've been DWR has been kind of going back and forth in coordination with Reclamation, and kind of talking with NIPS on what the next step is, because once you hit the take limit, NIPS really has control, and I think DWR was trying to be proactive. So I think one of the things that they said was, okay, we're going to demonstrate our good faith by reducing the exports. So they went from, I think it's like 2,500 minus 2,500 CFS, and this is not going to mean a whole lot, to most people, but they reduce the old middle river flows to minus, I think it's 500.
500.
So to your point, what does that mean for us? It means less exports. But regardless, we're going to be hitting that take limit at some point. So the question is, okay, has DWR demonstrated what they've done everything they could? So that way, when we
I'll turn mine off. Maybe that.
when we hit the take limit, and NIPS is considering what the next action is, that we've demonstrated them that we've done everything we could. So I think in terms of legal action, I don't think there's a lot we can do. I kind of hinted at it. So the next step, I think, from the contractor standpoint, I think Jennifer is getting a letter prepared to NIPS, kind of stating our position. We understand that the NIPS director might be sympathetic to not just a biological issue, but also the water supply issue, which I think bodes well for us. But it's just a matter of, kind of verbalizing to her, hey, this is what our concerns are. And, every day that, the pumping is reduced, it is a real water supply hit to us. The second point that was made is that, right now it is wet. I think we're in excess flow conditions. So, I think it's natural for us to think, okay, all this water that's kind of running out to the ocean because Oroville is full and they have to release. It's not really going to any great benefit. And how does that impact, our Table A final allocation? I think that's to be determined. I think what the best case situation right now would be Oroville is full and also St. Louis is full by the time I think May rolls around, when the final allocation is made. So that way we're kind of starting off the year with good and healthy reservoir levels. Director Nelson is right. The CBP side of the St. Louis reservoir is full, and they may be surcharging into the state water contractor side. I think there may be some room for negotiations on us taking some surplus water, from the CVP side. But those are items that I don't get in a lot of detail about. But I just want to let you know that there are actions that's being taken right now. So we're not just idly standing by.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a steelhead. It's more of a trout.
It is a trout.
Yeah.
But it's like a salmon.
Yeah.
It's a trout that thinks it's a salmon.
Right. Tastes good.
Okay, that gets us to the end of the open session agenda. This time the board will recess into Oh, thanks. Into closed session. I was thinking I shut mine off, thinking it would help him.
It's very sensitive. If you even just touch
Oh,
it,
yeah?
shuts it off.
Oh, okay.
You have to like stay
At this time, the board will recess into closed session to consider the items on the agenda. Then we will reconvene open session to report out of closed. Good. All right. At this time, the regular meeting is reconvened. We do have a reportable item, and Jeff is going to handle it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. On item 13C, and a motion by Director Aguilar and a second by Director Nelson, and a 5-0 vote, the board took action to authorize the general manager to deny all claims that were submitted on February 19th, 2024, and authorize the GM to take the additional action to reject any future claims that may be filed in connection with the Tropical Storm Hilary. That was the end of the closed session.
Thank you. And with no further business, we're adjourned. Thanks for your time.